On today's Locked On Giants podcast, we're dipping into the mailbag to answer how did Jaxson Dart's NFL preseason debut compare to that of Daniel Jones? Locked On Giants starts now.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Traina. I'm your host, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all of my written work. And as always, we welcome on in our Blue Crew community members, our everydayers, our newcomers, and everybody in between. And we thank you for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And if you happen to be making us your first listen of the day, we appreciate that as well. All right, Giant fans, we've got a lot to cover on today, starting with a mailbag question that I received. Somebody asked me, can you do a stat comparison between Daniel Jones's preseason debut and Jaxson Dart's? So I have some stats from you from Pro Football Focus I'm going to share with you. Spoiler alert, the stats are pretty much the same. There are a little bit of differences here and there, but we'll go over that in the first segment and then just kind of draw some conclusions here because really it's just one preseason game. But anyway, that'll be our first segment. Then in segment 2, I keep seeing people ask me on social media and then also again on Monday when I did a radio spot out in Portland, Oregon, is Russell Wilson going to make it through the season for the Giants, or are the Giants going to push Jaxson Dart into the starting lineup? And I'm just going to revisit that again and tell you why I think they stay with Russell Wilson for the time being. All right, so that'll be segment 2. And then finally in segment 3, I have some final thoughts before we turn the page on the preseason win, some additional thoughts that I didn't cover yesterday that I just want to talk about. So we'll get those in, and then we will officially turn the page as the Giants get ready for 2 joint practices against the New York Jets. So that is our plan for today. Again, welcome on in to everybody. All right, so this question, I actually got this question from a lot of people asking me, how does Daniel Jones's first preseason performance compared to that of Jaxson Dart's? Now, look, to be fair here, I don't really think you can compare the two. Different personnel, different coaching staff, different offensive philosophies. It's not a straightforward apples to apples comparison, but you guys did ask me for the numbers, what does it look like? So I'm going to pop them on the screen. And for those of you who are listening, I'm going to read off some key stats. So here are the numbers. Daniel Jones from Jaxson Dart. Daniel Jones, of course, first year was 2019. Jaxson Dart, first year, 2025. Now, these stats are from Pro Football Focus. So some things I want to point out. Daniel Jones bested Jaxson Dart in statistical areas such as the key number of plays, Daniel having 13 to Jackson's 9. Daniel had 7 more dropbacks than Jaxson Dart, 28 to 21. His completion percentage, though, Daniel Jones's 59.3% to Jaxson Dart's 63.2. Jones had more passing yards, 222 to Dart's 154. So the yards per attempt, 8.22 for Daniel Jones, 8.11 for Dart. So about even, roughly. Each threw a touchdown. The average time to throw, Jaxson Dart had a little bit more time to throw than Daniel Jones did back in that 2019 debut. Jaxson Dart getting 2.64 seconds average time to throw to Daniel Jones's 2.56. Batted passes, Jaxson Dart had 2 batted down at the line of scrimmage. Daniel had none. Pass breakups was equal, 2 and 2. Turnover-worthy plays, which is TWP, 0 for each. Big-time throws, each guy had 1. Drops, Daniel Jones having 4 drop passes to Jaxson Dart just having 1. Jaxson Dart with a better rating, 106 to Daniel Jones's 98.1. And Daniel had 10 first downs to Jaxson Dart's 7. Okay, so those numbers kind of even for what it's worth. Now, I would not draw any conclusions and say, oh, Jaxson Dart's on the same path as Daniel Jones. The circumstances for Daniel Jones are a lot different than what they were for Jaxson Dart, right? Daniel Jones went through multiple systems, multiple coaches. He was really never set up to succeed, in my opinion. And then, when Joe Judge came in here, how they constantly drilled into Daniel Jones's head, don't throw the turnovers, don't make a mistake. Daniel Jones went from being a gunslinger to being timid. And I don't think he ever recovered from that. With Jaxson Dart, Brian Daboll not only handpicked this guy, but he's encouraging him to be a gunslinger. He is encouraging him not to worry about making mistakes. He is encouraging him to just let it loose, saying to him, okay, we're practicing. That's what practice is all about. So a big difference here. I would not get too hung up on the stats, but again, because you guys asked me for it, I wanted to get that into the show to show you that there really isn't that much of a difference in terms of the first preseason game. But, moving forward, that's where the two of them are going to kind of separate themselves. Jaxson Dart, who probably won't play this year, and if he does, it won't be till later in the year. We'll have an opportunity eventually to write his own chapter in Giants team history. Now, I do want to say one other thing on the topic before I take a break here. Jaxson Dart, in my opinion, is in a much better situation than Daniel Jones was as a rookie. Now, why do I say that? Considering Daniel Jones had Eli Manning there on the roster with him, who I still say is a future Hall of Famer, by the way. Jaxson Dart has 3 guys on the roster right now. Tommy DeVito, who knows the system, the offensive system, as well as anybody. He's got Russell Wilson, who has a lot of impressive marks on his resume in terms of accomplishments, and Jameis Winston, who is, I guess we could say, is a failed first-round draft pick, first overall pick. So the infrastructure that the Giants have put around Jaxson Dart is really solid, probably a little bit more solid than what Daniel Jones had. Okay, so he's got the Super Bowl and championship winning pedigree quarterback to teach him in Russell Wilson. He's got the mentor who knows the system, kind of like the big brother in the system in Tommy DeVito. And he's got the cautionary tale on what to avoid, what not to do in terms of wanting to have a long career in Winston. So just overall, I think Jaxson Dart is really set up to succeed. Now, obviously, he's got to do his part. He's got to seize the bull by the horns, as they say, and just continue to get better and better. He's going to have his days when he looks like a rookie. I mean, even his preseason debut wasn't perfect. It was encouraging, but not perfect. So he's going to have his days, but overall, like I've been saying all week, good start for Jaxson Dart, and I can't wait to see what he does against the Jets on Saturday night. All right, Giant fans, coming up next, I keep getting this question too. Will the Giants eventually move on from Russell Wilson this year? Will he even start this year? I mean, Brian Daboll said he was going to. I don't know why it's still a question, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about it since I do try to answer your questions. So that's coming up right after this. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back and in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, I'm playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. Whether you're all in on something new or you like sticking to head-to-head leagues or jumping into public leagues, Yahoo has you covered. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout the month of August. To kick it off, they just dropped the Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're into more of the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues, or you can join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedon. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And if you're wondering about my background, you notice that I'm not in my usual home office. I'm actually up here in Florham Park. I decided to take get away for a night, just stay closer to the facility. The Giants and the Jets, they do have a joint practice that is coming up. Starting on Tuesday, they are in Florham Park. Then on Wednesday, they are in East Rutherford. I'll be at both. I will have takeaways for you. And I'm also going to see if I can get Brandon Olson, who is going to be at the practices with me for New York Giants on SI, to see if he can't come on the show to talk a little bit about what we observed over the 2 days. It should be a lot of fun. The Jets facility is actually quite pretty up in this area. So I'm looking forward to the change of scenery. All right. Let's get back to our next topic on the list. Now, I wasn't originally going to put this on the show today, but it's interesting because I did a radio spot on Monday morning with a sports talk station out in Portland, Oregon, and the topic came up. They're like, okay, we know Brian Daboll said that Russell Wilson's going to be the starter, but do you think if Jaxson Dart continues, will they maybe change things up? And how much pressure is Brian Daboll under to actually get Jaxson Dart on the field? Folks, first off, Russell Wilson is going to start. If he is healthy, he is going to start. Daboll has said it now multiple times. I don't know why this continues to be a question. As for Jaxson Dart, I do think at some point this season, he will get snaps in a game. I don't think he will start a game, but I think at some point he will take on that quarterback 2 role, and he will get into a game if for no other reason in a mop-up role. Okay, now, why am I so sure that the Giants are going to stay with Russell Wilson regardless of what happens these next couple of weeks with Jaxson Dart? Quite simply, this is year 4 of the Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen era. This is not year 1, all right? Unlike last year with Washington, who had a new head coach, a new GM, a new quarterback, a new owner, a new everything, they could afford to put their quarterback, Jaden Daniels, in there from day 1. Not to mention their backup quarterback situation, their veteran quarterback situation wasn't really, ideal. So it would have been a major upset had Washington not been able to start Jaden Daniels. And of course, he rewarded their faith in him. The Giants situation is different. The Giants are coming off of a franchise worst 3-14 record. We all know that, okay? The pressure is on Brian Daboll. He has got to get this team back on the right track. Now, Joe Schoen's under pressure too, but from all accounts, at least on paper, Joe Schoen delivered with a solid roster. Brian Daboll has got to do his part. So now is not necessarily the time to throw caution to the wind and say, okay, you know what? Yeah, we've got Russ here, we got Jameis here, but Jaxson, let's get him some reps. No, the Giants have a plan for Jaxson Dart. That plan does not include starting him right out of the chute. That plan includes to continue having him check off the boxes. And, he's going to get a lot of work this preseason. And I think he's going to go a long way towards checking off some of those boxes. And I firmly believe that by the end of this year, he will be quarterback 2. All right. I really do believe that. So you don't want to rush Jaxson Dart into the lineup. And if you want another reason, Going back to segment 1, when I did the comparison between Daniel Jones and Jaxson Dart, look at Daniel Jones' situation back in 2019. What did they do? They rushed him into the lineup before he was ready. They had Eli Manning on the roster. There was absolutely no reason that Eli Manning, even though he started off 0-2 with a, not so good team around him, by the way, they had no reason to pull Eli Manning, except Pat Shurmur, the head coach at the time, wanted to unlock a part of his playbook that Eli Manning, he felt, could not execute. And that was the design quarterback runs. So what did they do? They threw Daniel Jones in there. Instead of letting him continue to acclimate and learn behind Eli Manning, which was supposed to be the plan, by the way. All right, I've had several people tell me that was supposed to be the plan. They threw Daniel Jones right in there. And he went on a roller coaster. So you throw in the fact that he was rushed into the starting lineup. You throw in the fact that he had multiple head coaches and offensive systems and offensive coordinators. Guy wasn't set up to succeed. With Jaxson Dart, they want for Brian Daboll to be the coach for however many years, the next decade plus. They want this system to remain consistent. They don't want to have to change things up every time they make a change at the head coaching spot. Right now, it might be a different offensive coordinator in Jaxson Dart's ear, because I don't think Mike Kafka is going to be here for 10 years. But it is Brian Daboll's offense. So the Giants, in their approach to getting Jaxson Dart ready, they want consistency. They want stability. Daniel Jones never had that. So when Jaxson Dart is ready to step in, and again, it could be later this year. I doubt it. As long as Russell Wilson is healthy and as long as the Giants are winning, I doubt it will be Jaxson Dart. Now, if the season goes down the tubes, maybe we see him later in the year, but it's not going to happen, at least for the first half of the season. For as long as the Giants are realistically in any type of playoff contention, it is not going to happen. Unless, again, also, if there is an injury to Russell Wilson. And even in that case, I think you see Jameis Winston before you see Jaxson Dart. So let's put this whole idea on the shelf for the time being. We will see Jaxson Dart at some point. It just probably won't be this year unless the injury bug decides to take a bite out of the Giants' quarterback room. All right, coming up next, some final thoughts to wrap up preseason 1 before we turn the page and we start going ahead to the next preseason game against the Jets on Saturday night. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Hey, Giant fans, August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer on Defensive Rookie of the Year honors if you're feeling good about Giants outside linebacker Abdul Carter running away with the honors. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bet now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm Patricia Traina, and make sure you keep it here all week long. Giants-Jets joint practices this week. Florham Park is up first, home of the Jets. East Rutherford, home of the Giants, is up on Wednesday. Then the Giants have a Cards practice on Thursday. Nothing on Friday. Kickoff on Saturday. So it's going to be a busy, busy week as always. We are getting so close to the start of the regular season. I can't wait. All right, so before we get to preseason 2 later in the week, and we will talk about that, I have a few final thoughts regarding preseason game 1. Now, this is kind of interesting. I'm going to kick things off with Micah McFadden. Micah McFadden is in the final year of his contract. And I'll be honest with you, if you had asked me 2 months ago if I thought the Giants should re-sign him, I would have said no. I've changed my mind. Micah McFadden continues to be an underrated type of linebacker. And, he's in the limited snaps he got in the first preseason game, he came up with the hit of the game. And his tackling and just everything about his game looks so much more improved based on what I've seen in training camp practices. So that got me wondering if the Giants maybe look to re-sign McFadden after this year, but maybe move on from Bobby Okereke, who has a big cap hit. I don't see them carrying both Okereke and McFadden. Now, I'd like to see Bobby finish out his contract, but with that back thing, that back injury that he had, you never know when that's going to pop up again. I hope it doesn't for his sake. I think I would rather go with the guy who maybe is less of an injury risk, if possible. So I do think McFadden should be resigned. And I'll add to that, I haven't been ultra impressed with the backup inside linebacker depth. Now, some people say, okay, well, why not just play Abdul Carter back there? He could play the role. That's not something I think you want to see for the full time. You don't want to see Abdul Carter in that role full time. He's an outside linebacker. He is an edge rusher. That's where he belongs. And yes, you will probably see him take some inside linebacker snaps, but I don't think I want to see him as a full-time inside linebacker. I don't think the Giants coaches are planning to put him as a full-time inside linebacker. So, yeah, I say bring back McFadden. I don't think he's going to cost them a whole lot, but also I don't think they're going to be able to afford both McFadden and Okereke on the roster. So I'm kind of curious to see which direction they go in. All right, next point. This pains me to say because I have a ton of respect for guys on the roster who are leaders, who give their all, who are good locker room people, who are good people in general. But when it comes to Raheem Nunez-Roches, I just don't see how the Giants can justify keeping him. The guy's production no longer matches what his contract is paying him. And the reason why it sucks is because you get instances where you have to get rid of good people for financial reasons because of the salary cap. I think this is going to be one. Raheem Nunez-Roches just seemed like he's not able to make plays, not able to get off blocks, not able to occupy double team blocks. And with all the young talent that they have added to that roster at defense and on the defensive line, young talent, veteran talent, I just don't see how they justify keeping Raheem Nunez-Roches. And it's a shame. Like I said, he's a good locker room leader, a good guy, but it's a business. And I think, come the cut down date, I would be very, very surprised if he's on the roster. One last point for you guys. I want to talk about the kicker situation. Graham Gano in the first preseason game looked like the Graham Gano of old. 3 field goals, each of 50-plus yards. That's what we are accustomed to seeing from Graham Gano. Now, interestingly enough, according to Pro Football Focus, Jude McIntyre, who also had, I think, a 40-plus yard field goal that he converted, he actually had the better kickoff hang time compared to Gano. So McIntyre, his hang time was 3.72 seconds to Gano's 3.46 seconds, meaning that, the better the hang time, the easier it is for the coverage guys to get down the field and make the play. Now, quite frankly, I'm not too concerned about that aspect of the game because there are things they can do to kind of mask, if you will, any loss of leg strength that Gano might have on kickoffs. They can do, obviously, pooch kicks, which I really don't want to see them do because they don't cover them well, but that's an option. They obviously have, they can try and get it into the end zone. And then they can scheme things up, maybe do directional kicking. So there are ways to kind of counter that. But it's interesting because at the start of the offseason, Gano was mentioned as a possible cap casualty. And I just think that the reason why he is still here, besides the fact that the Giants felt that he was going to be okay and look like himself again, I think the reason why he's still here is because, again, do you really want an inexperienced kicker on the roster? A guy who you don't know how he's going to perform in pressure situations, whereas you know what you're going to get with Gano. Again, folks, this is a must-win year for Brian Daboll. This roster has got to perform. The record has to be better. Do you really want to take that chance? Like, it's just almost like the same situation with the rookie quarterback. Do you want to take that chance? Usually, your kicker is going to be your highest scorer on the team, which if the Giants kind of follow suit with what they've done in the past, they're going to get a lot of field goals. So on that note, I kind of would like to see Gano continue to kick. I'm glad that they got him some reps, but I don't think at this stage they're going to do anything with Gano or his contract. There are other places they can go to get money, and they're going to need to go, by the way, in order to clear some cap space. So we'll see how that plays out. They're going to definitely have to maybe, I would go and get money back from Andrew Thomas, redo his contract. I think if you restructure his contract, which makes sense, you can get a nice chunk of money that'll carry you through the regular season. But I would not touch Gano's contract at this point. So, all right, Giant fans, that will do it for this edition of the Locked On Giants podcast. Now, before we say goodbye, I want to first thank you for spending part of your day with us here on Locked On Giants. And if you made us your first listen of the day, thank you for that. For your next listen, please consider checking out Locked On Bets. Betting experts Lee Sterling and Kevin Rodgers have daily MLB locks and can't miss football futures. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Giant fans, I'll be back tomorrow with a practice report from the Giants-Jets joint practice at Florham Park. Hope you will tune in. Until then, have a good one, and I'll see you then.